There's a certain kind of person who looks at a packed social calendar and feels something close to dread, not because they're broken, not because they're afraid, but because somewhere deep inside, they already know. The best version of their evening doesn't involve other people, and society has a word for that. Boring. Antisocial. A little sad, maybe. But here's what the research actually says. People who genuinely love being home don't lack something. They have something. Something most people spend their whole lives chasing. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why your love of home isn't a flaw in your character. It's a feature of your psychology. And there's one trait in particular, toward the end, that's going to reframe everything. So if you've ever felt like you needed to apologize for wanting a quiet night in, stay with me. Let's start with something most people get wrong. The assumption is that people who love staying home are simply introverts. Shy, maybe. Socially awkward, perhaps. And while introversion is part of the picture, it's actually only one layer of something much deeper. Psychologists have spent decades studying what's called sensory processing sensitivity, the degree to which a person's nervous system picks up and processes stimulation from the outside world. Some nervous systems are wired to seek that stimulation. They need the noise, the movement, the unpredictability. It energizes them. Others are wired differently, more finely tuned, more responsive, not weaker, just more sensitive to input. And for those people, the outside world isn't just tiring. It's genuinely overwhelming in ways that are hard to explain to someone who doesn't experience it. Home, for them, isn't a retreat from life. It's where life actually makes sense. And here's what matters before we go further. This isn't about fear. It isn't avoidance. Leading researchers in personality psychology have found that these preferences are largely biological, baked into how your brain regulates stimulation from birth. You didn't choose to love your quiet evenings any more than someone else chose to love crowded rooms. It's just how you're wired. Trait number 1, the inner world architect. People who love staying home tend to have an extraordinarily rich inner world. Psychologists call this high internal stimulation, the ability to generate meaning, ideas, and emotional depth entirely from within, without needing the outside world to provide it. Where other people need external input to feel engaged, home lovers are already busy. There's a whole landscape happening inside their mind. Thoughts connecting to other thoughts, ideas forming quietly, emotions being processed with a kind of care that busier, louder people rarely have time for. And research backs this up. Studies on solitude and creativity consistently show that people who are comfortable spending time alone score higher on measures of creative thinking and self-reflection. Not because solitude makes them creative, but because their comfort with stillness allows that creativity to surface. The world's most interesting ideas rarely come from a crowded room. They come from a quiet Tuesday evening, a long shower, a slow walk alone. That's not a coincidence. That's neuroscience. So if you've ever felt guilty for preferring your own company, what you're actually doing is protecting the conditions your mind needs to do its best work. That's not isolation. That's architecture. Trait number 2, the sanctuary builder. People who love staying home don't just happen to enjoy their space. They curate it, intentionally, carefully, in a way that tells you a lot about how their psychology works. Psychologists refer to this as environmental mastery, the need to shape your surroundings in a way that reflects and supports your inner state. For home-loving people, this isn't just decorating. It's something closer to self-expression. The lighting they choose, the corner they always sit in, the specific mug they use every morning, none of it is accidental. What's really happening is a deep connection between environment and emotional regulation. Research in environmental psychology shows that people with higher sensory sensitivity are significantly more affected by their surroundings than the average person. Noise, clutter, harsh lighting, these aren't minor annoyances for them. They're genuinely disruptive to their sense of calm. So they build a space that works, a space that feels safe, a space where the nervous system can finally exhale. And here's the reframe. In a world that constantly tells us to go out, explore, be everywhere, there's something quietly radical about a person who says, "I've built something worth staying in." That's not smallness. That's intentionality. Trait number 3, the deep connector. People who love staying home are often some of the most deeply connected people you'll ever meet. Not broadly connected, not the person with 500 acquaintances and a packed social schedule, but deeply connected to a small number of people who genuinely matter. Psychologists call this selective sociality. And it's not a limitation. It's a highly sophisticated social strategy. When your nervous system processes stimulation deeply, shallow interaction feels draining. Small talk, surface-level conversation, the performance of being on in a group, it costs something real. So home-loving people become selective. They invest their social energy where it actually means something. Research on relationship satisfaction consistently finds that quality matters far more than quantity. People with fewer but deeper relationships report higher emotional well-being, greater feelings of being understood, and stronger resilience during difficult times. So while the world is out there collecting contacts, the home lover is having a 3-hour conversation with one person that changes how they see something. That's not loneliness. That's depth. Trait number 4, the grounded self. People who love staying home tend to have a remarkably stable sense of self. They don't need external validation to feel okay. They don't need to be seen, applauded, or surrounded to feel whole. Psychologists call this self-concept clarity, a clear, consistent sense of who you are that doesn't shift depending on the room you're in. And here's why that matters. Most people unconsciously use social situations to define themselves. The group they belong to, the image they project, the reactions they get. But home lovers? They've already done that work quietly, on their own. Their identity doesn't depend on an audience. That's not arrogance. That's groundedness. There's actually a term in psychology for what happens when people constantly seek external stimulation to feel okay. It's called identity contingency. Your sense of self becomes contingent on what's happening around you, on who's watching, on whether the night was good enough to post about. Home-loving people tend to be free from that. Not perfectly, nobody is. But their baseline doesn't require the world's approval to stay stable. And in a culture that profits from your insecurity, that kind of quiet self-possession is genuinely rare. So if you're someone who genuinely loves being home, who finds peace in stillness, meaning in small rituals, and depth in a few real connections, you're not missing out on life. You're living it differently, more intentionally, more honestly. The world will keep telling you to go out more, to be more social, to stop being so quiet. But maybe the quietest people in the room are the ones who've already found what everyone else is still looking for.